The notification on my phone showed a direct deposit I never authorized, dated 3 days ago. I stared at the screen in my cramped quarters at Lodges Field, Portugal. Chief Master Sergeant Dean Harrington, 34 years old, United States Air Force. Deployed for 8 months managing logistics operations across the Atlantic. The banking app showed my military pay had been split between 2 accounts. Mine and one I'd never seen before. The second account belonged to someone named D. Harrison. I refreshed the app twice. Same result. My base pay, housing allowance, and combat pay had been divided equally. Half to my legitimate account. Half to this phantom account with a name that looked suspiciously close to mine. I called my bank's fraud line immediately. 20-minute hold time. The representative confirmed the deposits were legitimate, processed through the Defense Finance and Accounting Service. Both accounts showed valid military identification numbers. Both had my Social Security number attached. Sir, according to our records, you opened the second account 6 months ago. In person. At our branch in Colorado Springs. I was in Portugal 6 months ago. Had been for the entire. Can you tell me what address is listed for the second account? 1247 Maple Ridge Drive, Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'd never lived at that address. Never been to that street. The representative suggested I contact DFAS directly to resolve the split payment authorization. Standard procedure for military pay disputes. She seemed unconcerned. Routine administrative error, she called it. But someone had walked into a bank branch, used my identity, opened an account, redirected my military pay. For 6 months, they'd been collecting half my income while I served overseas. I hung up and opened my laptop. Started searching property records for 1247 Maple Ridge Drive. The address existed. Single-family home, rental property owned by a management company. Current tenant listed as D. Harrison. My hands stayed steady as I typed. Years of military training kept my breathing controlled. But my mind was racing through possibilities. Identity theft, administrative error, system hack, or someone who knew exactly how military pay systems worked. Someone who understood DFAS procedures well enough to split my deposits without triggering immediate red flags. Someone who knew I'd be deployed long enough to establish a pattern. Someone who had access to my personal information. I pulled up my contact list and scrolled to Marcus Chen, my buddy from tech support back at Peterson Space Force Base. If anyone could help me trace this digital trail, it was him. The call went straight to voicemail. Time difference. He'd be asleep. I left a message anyway. Marcus, it's Dean. I need your help with something. Call me back as soon as you get this. It's urgent. I set the phone down and stared at the banking app again. 6 months of stolen pay. Thousands of dollars. Someone had been living off my military service while I was deployed, defending their freedom. The notification sound chimed again. Another deposit had just processed. The notification showed another deposit, $1,847.33. Half my monthly base pay, routing directly to that Colorado Springs account. I screenshot everything and started building a file. Marcus called back 3 hours later. Dean, what's going on? You sounded stressed. Someone's been stealing my military pay for 6 months. I need help tracking the digital footprint. Jesus, send me everything you have. Account numbers, routing information, timestamps. I'll run it through our fraud detection protocols. I forwarded the screenshots and banking records. Marcus had been my roommate during technical training at Goodfellow Air Force Base. He understood military pay systems better than most finance officers. If there was a digital trail, he'd find it. Give me 24 hours, he said. I'll call you back with whatever I can dig up. I spent the next day reviewing my paperwork. Every form I'd signed before leaving Peterson. Every power of attorney document. Every emergency contact listing. Looking for any vulnerability someone could have exploited. My phone rang at 0800 local time. Marcus. Dean. I found something. The account was opened using a military dependent ID card. Someone walked into the bank branch with your information and a dependent card showing D. Harrison as your spouse. I don't have a spouse. I know. But the system shows a marriage certificate filed in El Paso County, Colorado, dated 3 weeks before you're in. Someone forged the paperwork and used it to establish spousal benefits. My stomach dropped. Who has access to that kind of documentation? Someone who works in military administration. Someone who understands the dependent verification process. Someone who knew you'd be deployed long enough to avoid immediate detection. I thought about everyone who had access to my personal files. Finance personnel, administrative staff, family readiness group coordinators. The list was longer than I wanted to admit. There's more, Marcus continued. I traced the IP address used to set up the online banking access. It originated from a computer at Peterson Space Force Base. Someone used military networks to manage your stolen pay. Can you identify which computer? Working on it. But Dean, this wasn't random identity theft. This was planned by someone who knew your schedule, your pay structure, and your personal information. Someone close to you. I ended the call and walked to the base communications center. Used a secure terminal to access my personnel records. Everything looked normal. No unauthorized changes. No suspicious access logs. But someone had been inside my life for months. Someone I trusted. I called my sister Emma back in Denver. She'd been handling my mail and checking on my apartment while I was deployed. Emma, has anyone asked about me recently? Anyone claiming to be from the military or needing information? Actually, yes. About 3 months ago, someone called saying they were from your finance office. They needed to verify your address for pay purposes. I gave them your apartment address, but they said they already had that one. They were asking about any other addresses you might use. What did you tell them? I said I didn't know of any others. But Dean, the person knew details about your, They knew you were in Portugal. They knew your rank and unit. I thought it was legitimate. Did they give you a name? Let me think. It was someone familiar. Someone who said they knew you from before your J. Tyler, something. My blood went cold. Tyler Brennan. My childhood friend from Ohio. We'd grown up 3 houses apart. Played baseball together through high school. He'd joined the Army National Guard after graduation while I went active duty Air Force. Tyler had visited me at Peterson Space Force Base 2 months before my fall later. I'd given him a tour of the facilities, introduced him to people in my unit. He'd seemed genuinely interested in my career, asking detailed questions about military pay and benefits. He'd also been at my apartment that weekend, had access to my personal documents while I was showing him around the base. Emma, did the caller say his last name was Brennan? Yes, that's it, Tyler Brennan. He said you two were old friends and he was helping coordinate something for your unit. I hung up and immediately called the bank's fraud department. Requested copies of all documentation used to open the Colorado Springs account. They agreed to email everything within 48 hours. Marcus called back that evening. I identified the computer. It belongs to Staff Sergeant Tyler Brennan, 140th Wing, Colorado Air National Guard. He's been accessing your account information using legitimate military networks. How long has he had access? The logs show initial access 3 weeks before your. He's been monitoring your account activity regularly. Dean, this guy has been planning this for months. I pulled up Tyler's social media profiles. His recent posts showed a lifestyle that didn't match National Guard pay. New truck, expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Las Vegas, all funded by my military service while I was deployed overseas. The bank's fraud documentation arrived the next morning. Copies of the marriage certificate, the dependent ID card application, the account opening forms, all signed with my forged signature, all using Tyler's address in Colorado Springs. He'd created an entire fake identity as my spouse, used military systems to redirect my pay, lived off my income for 6 months while I served in Portugal. But he'd made one critical mistake. The dependent ID card photo wasn't some random woman. It was Tyler himself, wearing a wig and makeup, listed as Dana Harrison, close enough to Dean Harrington to pass casual inspection. I had everything I needed. Documentation, digital, witness, testimony from my sister. Tyler Brennan had stolen over $11,000 of my military pay, used his National Guard access to commit fraud against an active duty service member, betrayed 20 years of friendship for money. Now I had to decide how to destroy him. I contacted the Air Force Office of Special Investigations the next morning. Agent Sarah Chen took my call at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. She specialized in military financial crimes. Chief Master Sergeant Harrington, this case involves multiple federal violations: identity theft, wire fraud, abuse of military systems. We need to coordinate with civilian authorities. What's the timeline? We'll work with the Colorado State Insurance Commissioner's office. They handle cases involving fraudulent dependent claims. Agent Lopez from their bureau will lead the civilian investigation. Agent Lopez called me that afternoon. Her voice was sharp and professional. We've seen similar cases involving National Guard personnel. The military access makes prosecution easier. We need you to participate in a controlled operation. What kind of operation? Contact Tyler directly. Arrange a meeting. We'll record everything. Get him to admit what he's done on tape. The plan was simple. I would call Tyler and confront him about the Colorado Springs account. Claim I discovered the discrepancy and wanted to discuss it privately. Set up a meeting for when I returned to the States. Agent Lopez would coordinate with base security at Buckley Air Force Base near Denver. They'd provide surveillance and recording equipment. Tyler would never know law enforcement was involved until after his confession. I made the call on Thursday evening. Tyler answered on the second ring. "Dean, how's Portugal treating you?" "It's been interesting. Listen, I need to talk to you about something. There's been some confusion with my pay accounts." Silence for 3 seconds. "What kind of confusion?" "My bank contacted me about an account in Colorado Springs. They said you helped set it up for my wife. But I'm not married, Tyler." "Oh, that? Yeah, there was some paperwork mix-up. Military bureaucracy, you know how it is. Nothing serious." "Nothing serious?" "Tyler, someone's been receiving my paychecks for 6 months. That's $11,000. "Dean, calm down. I can explain everything when you get back. It's complicated, but I was trying to help you with some tax advantages. Military spouses get better benefits." He was still lying. Even caught red-handed, Tyler couldn't admit what he'd done. "I'll be back next month. We should meet and sort this out." "Absolutely. I'll bring all the paperwork. We'll get it straightened out." Agent Lopez was satisfied with the recorded conversation. Tyler had admitted knowledge of the account and claimed responsibility for the setup. That was enough to proceed with the sting operation. I flew back to Colorado Springs 3 weeks later. The Air Force granted me emergency leave to handle the financial investigation. Agent Lopez met me at the airport with recording equipment and a detailed plan. "We've been monitoring Tyler's activities. He's continued accessing your account information even after your phone call. He knows you're suspicious but thinks he can talk his way out of it." The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop near Peterson Air Force Base, public location. Multiple exit routes, civilian setting to keep Tyler comfortable. I arrived 15 minutes early. Agent Lopez and 2 other investigators were positioned at separate tables. Backup units waited in the parking lot. Everything was recorded through multiple devices. Tyler walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. He looked nervous but tried to project confidence. Sat down across from me and ordered black coffee. "Dean, good to see you back. You look tired." 6 months in Portugal will do that. "Let's talk about the account, Tyler." "Right. Like I said, it was a tax strategy. Military spouses get better health care benefits. I thought I could help you maximize your pay." "By creating a fake wife named Dana Harrison?" His face went pale. "How did you—" "I saw the dependent ID card photo, Tyler. It's you in a wig. You've been stealing my paychecks while I was deployed overseas." Tyler's hands started shaking. He looked around the coffee shop like he was planning to run. "Dean, listen, I was going to pay it all back. I just needed some time. My mom's medical bills, the house, payment. I was desperate." "So you decided to steal from your deployed friend?" "It wasn't stealing. I was borrowing. I have access to military systems through my National Guard position. I saw how much you were making overseas and thought you'd help yourself to it. I was going to return everything before you got back. But then you called early, and I panicked." Agent Lopez stood up from her table and approached us. "Tyler Brennan, I'm Agent Lopez with the Colorado State Insurance Commissioner's Office. You're under arrest for wire fraud and identity theft." Tyler's coffee cup hit the floor. "Dean, you set me up? You stole $11,000 from me while I was serving overseas. What did you expect?" The arrest was swift and professional. Tyler was read his rights and escorted to a waiting vehicle. Agent Lopez collected all the recording equipment and thanked me for my cooperation. The case moved quickly through the federal system. Tyler's National Guard access made it a clear-cut military fraud case. He pleaded guilty to avoid trial and received 18 months in federal prison plus full restitution. The money was returned to my account within 60 days. The fake dependent account was closed, and all fraudulent documentation was destroyed. Tyler's security clearance was permanently revoked. Agent Lopez called me with the final update. Tyler Brennan was sentenced this morning. 18 months federal prison, 3 years supervised probation, and he's required to pay an additional $5,000 in penalties. What about his National Guard career? Discharged immediately. Dishonorable discharge. He'll never work in any position requiring security clearance again. I felt no satisfaction in Tyler's destruction. Just relief that it was over. But Agent Lopez had one more request. Chief Master Sergeant, we're seeing more cases like this. Military personnel being targeted by people with system access. Would you be willing to help us educate other service members about protecting their financial information? I agreed to participate in their awareness program, speaking to deployed units about financial security, warning them about the people they trusted most, because sometimes the greatest threats come from those closest to you. 6 months later, I was back at Lodges Field for my final rotation. The Portuguese coastline looked the same, but everything felt different now. The financial security briefings had become a regular part of my duties. I had spoken to over 200 deployed personnel across 3 bases. The stories were always similar. Trusted friends with access. Small amounts at first. Then bigger thefts when nobody noticed. My phone buzzed with a message from Agent Lopez. Another case solved using your protocols. Staff Sergeant in Germany caught his brother stealing disability payments. Thanks for the training materials. I'd helped develop a checklist for deployed personnel, monthly account reviews, credit monitoring alerts, verification calls for any dependent changes, simple steps that could prevent what happened to me. The Colorado Springs VA clinic had also reached out. They needed volunteers to help veterans navigate their benefits. Too many were losing money to scams and fraudulent claims. Every Tuesday evening, I worked with patients who'd been targeted by fake benefit advisors, people who promised to maximize their disability ratings for a fee. Others who'd had their compensation checks redirected to unknown accounts. I volunteer at a clinic teaching patients about their coverage rights. The work felt meaningful in a way that combat operations never had. Tyler had been released after 14 months. Good behavior and cooperation with other investigations. Agent Lopez told me he was working at a warehouse in Denver. No access to computers or financial systems. I never tried to contact him. There was nothing left to say. My final day at Lodges Field was quiet. No ceremony or farewell dinner, just another flight back to Colorado Springs, the same route I'd taken when this all started. The apartment I'd rented was small but secure. Deadbolts on every door, security cameras at the entrance. Maybe excessive, but trust didn't come easily anymore. My bank account showed a healthy balance. The restitution money plus my pay had built a solid foundation. No more automatic payments or shared access. Every transaction required my direct approval. The evening news was running a story about military fraud. Billions stolen from service members every year. Most cases never reported because the victims trusted their attackers. I turned off the television and walked to the window. The mountains were visible in the distance, snow-capped and permanent, unchanging in a world where everything else could be manipulated. My phone stayed silent. No suspicious alerts or unknown charges. The monitoring systems I'd installed worked perfectly, but they weren't needed anymore. The betrayal had taught me something valuable about human nature. People will take what they can get if the opportunity presents itself, even people you've known your entire life. But it had also shown me that justice was possible, that systems existed to catch thieves and recover stolen money, that speaking up could prevent others from suffering the same losses. The clinic work continued every Tuesday. New faces with similar stories. Veterans who'd trusted the wrong people with their benefits. Each case reminded me why the awareness training mattered. I'd started sleeping better. The hypervigilance was fading. The constant checking of accounts and credit reports had become routine rather than obsessive. Tyler's betrayal had cost him everything. His military career, his freedom, his future prospects. The $11,000 he'd stolen had destroyed his entire life. Sometimes I wondered if he thought it was worth it. If those few months of easy money had been worth 18 months in federal prison. But those thoughts came less frequently now. The anger had burned out, leaving only a cold understanding of what people were capable of when they thought nobody was watching. The sun was setting behind the mountains. Another day finished. Another step away from the betrayal that had defined the last year of my life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More veterans to help. More service members to educate. More opportunities to prevent what had happened to me from happening to others. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.